Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you?
Awesome, awesome stuff. You know what? It's the first time that I call you sir and you call me brother. Usually it's the other way around. Nah, I don't feel too comfortable being called sir. That makes me feel old, man.
That's just programming, man, from the discipline of martial arts and showing respect to everybody out there. It's
Yeah.
just something
You
I've been
you
brought
got
up with it. So everybody's assured to me that I have an opportunity to learn from and speak with and interact with.
all right. Awesome, awesome. Tell you what, do you want to give us like a little introduction about who you are, what you're into, what you're doing, what's your life's work in a few sentences, please?
Sure. My name is Harinder Singh. People know me as Sifu Singh. I'm a lifelong martial artist. I'm a speaker. I'm a thought leader. I work with everything from military, government agencies to Silicon Valley executives. And at the end of the day, I'm in the chaos business. So I teach people how to be their best in chaos. How do they relax under pressure? How do they slow down their perception of time? How do they expand their awareness? And the most important thing that I think we can learn where empowerment stems from is our ability to make conscious choices, choose responses, as opposed to falling into reactive tendencies and patterns. And
Yeah.
whether we're talking about martial arts, we're talking about a street fight, or we're talking about connecting to somebody you love, or in a business meeting, or a sales meeting, or in the ER room, wherever it may be, there's nothing in this world that can be disassociated with our relationship to our center.
Yeah.
If we can come from there, and most importantly, keep it under pressure,
Yeah.
that's what martial arts I love about it, is because whatever we can talk about all the philosophies in the world, but if we can't test them under pressure, then are they really real? And so that's my work is about taking the philosophy and embedding it through a principles and practice oriented method so that I can experience it in my life outside of the gym, outside of the kun, the dojo, off the mats. Because, I always tell everybody, you don't have to be a fighter, but everybody's got to be a warrior because the real war is in here. And the real enemy is you, and it's your doubt and it's your tension. And so that's
Mm.
my quest, is to win that war and help my clients and students and people do the same thing.
That's awesome, man. So, like, straight away by watching your videos, this is, I mean, obviously there is the martial arts and the Jeet Kune Do and all that I love as well. But the way that you talk in your videos and the way that you speak about the light and the darkness and all these energies that are happening at the same time, and how you make the how you should make the conscious choice, what you want, what sort of energy you want in your life will dictate, what sort of outcome you're going to get. And I find that's really interesting. There's a few people like that really mix the philosophy and the spirituality with the martial arts. And the other person that I know of that does that is Jeff Thompson. And so even in his young days, when he was still teaching the combative aspects of things, the way that he was talking, it was always like very, very geared towards personal development and how to become the best version of yourself and how to get the best outcome, and how the actual fight translates to the inner fight that's happening within you all the time, the battle between good and evil, light and darkness, you know what I mean? So yeah, I find it really, really interesting, the fact that everything's interconnected. Like, what's happening in your head it's like it's like your physiology, your body language, your words, your actions. Is a manifestation of what's happening on the inside. And if you can kind of manage what's happening on the inside, then you can be good at what you do on the outside. So yeah, that's really, really interesting stuff. So tell you what, we'll start by a few simple questions. Where were you born in? Were you born in the US, brother?
No, I was born in Pune, India. This is outside
Okay.
of Mumbai, so I was born there. And my dad was a sea captain, so I spent the first 4 years of my life on a merchant vessel traveling all over the world. And then we settled in Canada, and I grew up in Canada. I did all my high school and everything in Canada, and then I came to the United States, moved to California in 1997 on a tennis scholarship, wanting to become a computer and electrical engineer, which I did once upon a time. And now I'm here. I still live in Southern California right now, and I guess I've spent most of my life in California, so I love
Mm.
this.
Yeah, I've never been to that side of the world. Maybe someday. Maybe
Yeah,
someday.
come out. You got some beautiful beaches, great atmosphere,
Yeah,
good people. It's awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's just in, you know, the American movies. Most of them are like showing California. Yeah,
Right, right. I mean, I guess that's where part of my brainwashing came when I decided to leave Toronto. It's one of the most multicultural cities in the world, and I love the place, but it's a little cold. So
yeah.
I
Toronto.
wanted the warmth, and I said, if I'm going somewhere, it's going to be California. And,
Tell you what, I've lied when I said to you I've never been to this part of the world. I have been once to Canada, and that was Toronto. That was Ontario, and
okay,
I've stayed there for a few weeks.
that's my
Yeah, it
hood, man. Yeah.
was a long time ago. So let's talk martial arts a little bit, and then we'll speak personal development and then like spiritual practices. And how did you start the martial arts? Is that something that you found very early in your life, or is that something that you knew straight away you wanted to do it, or did you come to it maybe a bit later on, or how did it work?
A couple things. So one of my earliest memories I ever have, being in India, since my dad was a sea captain, he went to Hong Kong once, and he
Mm,
came back with these two posters. He came back with a poster of Bruce Lee, and he came back with a poster of Muhammad Ali, okay?
yeah.
My crib was like this, and so he hung the posters above my crib, but angled down, so if I'm laying down, I'm looking at those posters. So those are some of my earliest memories, and, watching Bruce Lee movies as a child, my mom always jokes around and says, he used to run around, but Bruce Lee, couldn't even pronounce it properly. And then when we immigrated to Canada, we were immigrants, right? And single mom in the sense my dad's traveling all the time. So my dad thought it was important that, and I had younger brothers, that I was able to defend myself. And so I got enrolled in karate. And my mom is a very scholastic person. She has like masters in mathematics, and so she was same with like my family. So she looked for somebody. How would she know who to send me to? So
Yeah.
she found Dr. Bert Konzak, who was a philosophy professor at the University of Toronto. So she's like, well, if he's a philosophy professor,
Mm.
he's educated, this should be different. And that's how she chose where to put me. And I did that from, I think, about 6 years old to 19 years old before I moved to United States. That's where I started.
Nice, nice. So what, you started with karate, you stuck with it for a while. When did you start moving on to other styles?
So that happened when I was in California, and there was an incident that changed my life. Some people may have heard the story, but while I was in university, there was a bonfire in San Francisco at this beach, and when you're a college kid, it's time to go party, right? So we have a 2-hour drive. We come down. We're the last two cars to arrive. So picture the scene. There's a hill at the top, and you come down the hill, and there's just Ocean Beach. For those of you who are familiar with it, there's a parking lot, and the parking lot's elevated. Then you have to go down the steps from the parking lot, and about 100 yards, 100 meters away, there's a bonfire, and there's about 100 people. We were
Okay.
the last car to arrive, the last two cars to arrive, myself and my friends. And so what do? Pop open that Jack Daniels and a little bit of Coke, Coca-Cola, and a little bit of beer, and we're celebrating. And bad things happen when you least expect it. You have a good time. Talk about zero situational awareness.
Mhm.
Literally out of the darkness, there was a local gang turf that they were looking for someone, and 25 local gangsters came out. And I still remember how they approached, people. It's not like how it occurs in the movies. And the guy to the right of me was smoking a cigarette. He was right next to, because remember, we're Silicon Valley kids of the dot-com boom at that time. So everybody's making a lot of money. We have sports cars and stuff like that. And so we're just hanging out. And the guy to the right of me smoking a cigarette, the guy to the left of me is my roommate. And I remember this so clearly. Their leader motioned over, and he asked the guy for the cigarette. He said, "Can I have a cigarette?" And before he can even respond, they grabbed my roommate to the left, took him to the center, made a formation, started beating on him, and the others deployed. So it was like battlefield formation. I've been in street fights before, but this was kind of crazy. But in that moment, as I'm sure you've experienced many times in your career, there's a choice that has to be made. There's a fight or flight response, and the part of you wants to run, a part of you may want to freeze. But I remember in that moment making a conscious choice that, and it's a split second, but time is starting to slow down. I'm going to stay because that's my roommate. In that moment, when I decided to stay, there was one guy, he had ripped off a 2x4 from off of a fence. And I knew
Mm.
that because the nails were still sticking out the sides. and he had
Mm,
it straddled like this. His shirt was open and had tattoos, and he swung at me, and I did an upper block. I
mhm,
swung back at him, and then I started to run as he started to chase me. So now it looks like a rugby match. It doesn't look like everybody forms a circle around you in a Bruce Lee movie and you come one
mm,
at a time. That's not what it is. But I'll tell you, in that moment, it was the most beautiful moment I had ever experienced in my life. In that midst of that chaos, time slowed down, and I experienced a level of peace that I'd never experienced before. I was like, "Holy shit, this is the most beautiful moment ever." And I'm running around and things are coming slowly. I'm not doing anything heroic. I didn't do anything like that. They're
mm,
chasing me, but I experienced this beautiful chaos. And I'll explain later what I found out what had happened. But in that motion, everything's moving around slowly. Time is slowed down, and I'm experiencing this beautiful moment. And divine intervention occurs that the two guys that were looking for happened to walk by, and I remember them saying, "They're over there, eh?"
mm.
Boom, they go over there, forget about us. I grab my roommate, take him off to the beach. And of course, you still got to be a hero, right? Even
Yeah.
I still got to be a hero. I got to do something. So I come back up, and by this time, people have called the cops. You can see the police cars coming from the top of the hill. It's about 2 miles long, so you can see it. Now all these guys are scattering in their cars, and as they're scattering in their cars, there was an Escalade. And I remember so clearly, I'm trying to get the license plate, but I can't see. It's dark. I've been hit a bunch of times. Can't make out the license plate. And I see the driver's side door open. The driver's side door opens, and the guy lifts up his sweatshirt and reaches his hand down. And I turn and run, and I hear 2 gunshots. I don't know if they were fired at me,
Yeah.
but I was running, I heard too, and I swear I would have beat Usain Bolt that day. I flew with the wind.
Yeah.
Mm, but that day really sparked my whole journey to where I am today because 2 things happened. One was this experience of this moment that I've never experienced before. I mean, I've experienced things in the zone and athletics before, but not like
Mm,
this. And the other thing was I was filled with so much anger, so much shame, so
mm,
much fear that I couldn't defend my friend. I was like, my honor was, I was like, he didn't do anything. I'm a worthless piece of shit. This is the conversation going on in my head. So at that point, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to become the most dangerous man I can be. That was my quest. That's it. And I got a
very
great job.
similar.
I got a
Very,
great,
very similar,
what's
you.
that? What's that?
Very, very similar, you and I. We had very, very similar thoughts.
Okay.
I will become unfuckwithable.
100%. I was like, I'm going to become the most dangerous person on this planet. And so I graduated the following year and I got an amazing job. So
Mm,
money was not an issue. So at that point, the quest began, and I went and I found the most dangerous people I could find, paid them everything that they wanted, and I only trained privately. So
mhm.
all the martial arts instructors and everything that I've ever done was just private. So I would
Yeah.
go privately every weekend. I would fly all over the country every weekend. I'd find masters and I would just train and I would train. So, I took 2 routes, and one of them, people who know my story, was I looked to see, okay, who's the guy who trained the Navy SEALs? And it was Paul Vunak. And I was like, all
Mm,
right, that
yeah.
guy's dangerous. And for those of you who don't know, he is a very dangerous person, an individual, a very mad genius, you could say. And I went down that road with him. But at the same time, we've all heard about this. Is going to be the funny part. Yeah. I could talk about it now because I've worked through my shit. I think one of the things is that I wanted to learn the death touch. I was like, I want to learn the
Oh, the
death.
Dimmak.
I want to learn the Denmark. Do I know it? We've heard about it. So at that point, I'm so angry, right? So you're like, I want to learn this. Now, first question is, if you want to learn it, something is severely wrong with you and you need to talk to somebody. But I thought, okay, I'm going to outsmart the system and figure it out. Because I said, if somebody really actually knows it, they're not going to freaking teach it to me, number one. So I'm an engineer. So I said, you know what? I will reverse engineer this whole process. So
Mhm,
I got this bright idea. I'll enroll in medical Qigong and in a healing course. Because when I
mm,
did the research, I started to see, oh, this is all Chinese acupuncture meridians and energy flows and points. I said, okay. So what I'll do, I'll just do it like an engineering project. I'll enroll in a healing course for 4 years and then reverse engineer it for nefarious purposes.
mhm.
And so these were my two paths that started. And my Sifu, my Taiji Sifu, of course, they can see, right? They can see how what your blocks are, what your motivations are. And the interesting thing about a great teacher is they don't point out your blocks and your issues. They lead you to guide you to discover for yourself because that
Yeah.
empowers you to actually move past it. And then as Adrian started to do the work, I started to do the meditations, I started to go through the process. All of a sudden, there was a healing that started happening inside of me,
Mm,
right? And because up until this point, before getting jumped, all I cared about, let me tell you my life at that moment, all I cared about was making money,
mm,
chasing power, stock options, fame, sports cars, houses, millions. That's all I cared about because in my construct was that that was what success was. The
mhm.
other thing too is when I was 13 years old, I lost all my hair to alopecia.
You what?
To alopecia areata. So, people may think this slickness is for aerodynamics, which it is, but I lost all my hair to alopecia. It's an
Okay.
autoimmune disease that your cells go against your own hair follicles. So when I
Okay.
was 13 years old, I lost all my hair. And at that time, The Rock wasn't around. There wasn't any light skinned bald dudes to like look up to. So, I wore a wig and I started to hide. You feel that shame. You feel
Yeah.
ugly. You have these thoughts that are in your mind. But that's where in that street fight, because at that
Mm.
point I'm wearing a wig. I'm hiding. I'm covering my head all the time and have this but I had this confidence that was false, that was just made up, this person, this mask that you had to create. We all create a mask.
Yep.
We all
Layers, layers.
we all go through some trauma, some betrayal, some abandonment, some rejection. We all do, every one of us.
Yeah.
That makes us then there's fear that comes with that. Then there's an ego that gets developed. Then there's a self-hatred around it. And then there's
Mm.
a mask that protects you. That mask is not you. But that mask's job is to protect you from feeling the way that you felt before.
It's like a shield. I call it the onion analogy of consciousness. That we're shaped like an onion. We got at the very very core of the onion is what we are, the true selves, which is basically the source. It's the source of creation, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And the more you get away from that source, the more layers upon layers upon layers of consciousness you get. And let's say with people that you don't know, let's say for example you walk in the street and you see that group of people that are a bit, like they look a bit combative, they're up to no good, and now you will solidify, your body language will solidify, because the message that you want to portray is, I don't taste good, lads, don't fuck with me. But that's not who you are. That who you are is who you are with your lady, or who you are with your children. And even with your children and even with your lady, we could even argue that you are not the very very core of who you are. You still are wearing some layers of masks with your family, because let's say with your children, you don't want them to make the same mistakes you did, because you've had your own experience, your own pain and traumas that led to a certain perception. And now you are applying that perception on your children, because you don't want them to do the same mistakes. So once again, you're not going there with as pure as you can be. You still got masks as well. So yeah, it's like the onion consciousness, the onion shaped consciousness, shields upon shields upon shields. And it's all about learning to kind of drop the armor down. I,
Yes,
I
sir.
I get that, man. It's difficult. It's very very difficult, because we feel vulnerable. And learning to allow yourself to be vulnerable is a very very difficult thing, especially when people around you are pointing the finger at you and judging you. And I know myself, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm on the mild spectrum of autism as well. So since I was a kid, the way that I was learning, when I didn't want to learn something, there was no way you would make me learn. I was just drawing stuff at school instead of learning. But if I was interested, I'd learn quicker than everybody else, because I got a slightly. I'm not even throwing myself a bucket of flour. I did some tests. I got a bigger IQ than the average person, because when I want to learn something, it comes to me. When I don't, it doesn't. But that was the same thing. I had to build these layers. I had to build these shields. I had to put these masks on, because that was my way to protect myself from the people, that were judging me and hurting me. And then, with things like my big spiritual awakening, I'll speak about that later on. But with the practices and things that I've been through with plant medicine, and that's what really showed me and taught me how to shed that skin, and how to let them. You can't let all the mask go as a human being. I don't think it's possible. Everything is possible, but we're not there yet on a collective level I don't think we're quite there yet. I believe the day when we do that, we will be able to fly, communicate telepathically, move shit with our mind. We'll be. I know we can do all that stuff. It's there. We're just not there yet. We've not activated that dormant DNA yet. But it's within us. But yeah,
100%.
sorry, man. I'm regressing.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's so
That's,
you know,
yeah.
no, you understand, and I think everybody though, that's the thing. We're all playing a role, and that's what we have to free ourselves from is that role, and that's what the
Mm.
work is for. That's what true martial arts is really actually about. When Bruce Lee says, honestly,
Personal liberation.
right, but that's from yourself.
Yeah.
And it's, my Sifu said, we're going to take on this ridiculous task of freeing yourself from yourself.
Mm.
And as you go through each layer and you come down, then you go through another layer and you come down and you keep going closer and closer and closer to your center, which is all just unconditional love, great joy, great gratitude. It's an unbiased observer. It's where your connection to the divine is. It's your
Mhm.
connection to your path, your purpose. That's the divine flow, right? And so for me in that street fight, in that moment, all the masks were shattered.
Yeah.
That's when I felt free because I was like, "Holy shit!"
You
Because
found
that's
freedom.
later I found this, "Whoa, this is it. This
Mm.
is life from this filter, not from my filters. This is filterless life." That's why it felt so free. Later, I could figure out what had happened as I went through the training,
Mm.
because as I went through the internal martial arts training of Tai Chi, Qigong, and Neigong, I'm currently studying to get my doctorate. I'm a year out from that.
Huh.
And one of the things that happened for me was I realized that those people that were brought into my life to disrupt it were I can look at them as people and hold the trauma and the anger my whole life. Or I
Mm.
could say, are these angels that came in my life and shifted my path to get over here?
Mhm.
And then when I started to see things that way, like, wow, because where I'm at now and the work I'm doing on myself and the individual that I'm trying to be is much more healthier than that person was.
Yeah.
And you really start to see it, right? And when you're talking about the masks, all of us have to honor that version of ourselves. It's not like a bad thing. I think that's something very important for people to see. But that's all based purely in survival. And the
Mm.
true purpose of martial arts is to get us beyond survival towards thriving.
Yeah.
I was just got back from India, and I was working with the Indian Army over there, instituting a program. And I was speaking to the colonel, and one of the things that we were talking about was, what is the ultimate power? Is it anger? Because some people, you and I both know, many of us get started in martial arts because we're angry or we're afraid, and that's our fuel.
Yeah.
So and that's our fuel. Something has happened to violate us, and so that's our fuel. Like I
Mhm.
remember every time I would train before I would get ready for a seminar or whatever, I'm thinking, who's going to show up today? Who's going to challenge me today? That was the mindset, right?
Mm.
And that's not coming from love. And back to what you had said earlier about parenting, if my dad is not a good dad to me, and that's the reason I choose to be a good dad to my son, that's not
Mm.
fair to my son, because why am I not being a good dad to my son just because he's my son? Why do I need to be a good dad and loving to my son because I didn't have it?
Yeah.
It's a
That's
profound
good.
difference.
That's a very good logic, that, and I'm very much like that in some aspects as well. It's like, if I didn't get something, I know how it feels like to be on the receiving end of it. So I know what it's like to suffer from the lack of not having something. So why should I deprive somebody of that same thing if I know how it feels? So that's a good attitude to have. It's not, some people are the other way around, though. Some people, because they've been traumatized, they become like their how do you call that, like what's the opposite of victim?
They become
They become like the person who traumatized them, basically.
the
You know
abuser.
what I mean?
They become the abuser.
Yeah, they become the abuser because they've been abused, but that means they've not done the work inside. They've not understood where the abuse came from, where the violence came from. It's all like unconsciousness. It's like when people speak about evil. I don't know if I mean, what is evil is when you do something wrong and you know it's wrong and you enjoy doing that something wrong. Maybe that is evil, but I think that it's more unconsciousness. There is consciousness and there is unconsciousness. And the more you dwell in the darkness, the more unconscious you become, because the less you see, because it becomes darker and darker and you can't see the bigger picture. and the more you dwell in the light, the more the further you can see, and you can see the bigger picture, and you understand that what you're doing is wrong. And we still do stuff that's wrong now, not knowing that it's wrong. It doesn't mean we're bad people, just mean we are unconscious. It's like
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I've done some stuff when I was a kid that now I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking, shit, I'd never do that again. But it's not because I was a bad person or a bad kid. It's just I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Yeah. It's a very good attitude to have. Like, I didn't have it, so I'm gonna give it. Yeah. That's
And let's go a step further. Not I'm gonna give it not because I didn't have it, but because my son deserves it.
needs it and deserves it. Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? So for
Yeah.
example, if I'm wounded, and because I'm wounded, so like you said, if I'm wounded and then I wound somebody else, right? That's me repeating the pattern. That's what we see happen a lot. Then
Mm,
we see people go the other way. I'm wounded, so I want to make sure they don't get wounded because I felt this way.
yeah.
Okay, now let's go one step beyond it. Let's heal the wounding here and give them love just because they're worthy enough to receive the love, and
Mhm.
not because you're giving them love because you didn't get it.
Yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a difference, and it'll change the energy behind it. You know, when I was talking to the colonels in India, and you were talking about the energetic psychology of combat and warfare, and
Mhm.
people are driven from anger and fear. The ultimate power, if you really think about it, what makes a soldier do heroic tasks without thinking? What makes a soldier go jump on a grenade? What those heroes, what make they don't even hesitate? You know what it is? That their superpower is love.
Love. Yeah, to
It's
preserve
love.
life.
It's to preserve life. It's love for their team. It's love for their country.
Mhm.
It's love. So there's no second choice.
Mm,
So love will always trump anger and fear, but we need to work through our anger and fear so we
mm.
can understand what love is. Like you're talking about the light and the darkness. I think that if we remove the constructs of good and bad, and
Yeah,
look at it instead as just energy, like a battery. Do
yeah.
people prefer the positive side of the battery or the negative side of the battery?
Mm.
They're both necessary for the battery to
And
function.
and
One
and they're
function
both
the
aspects of the same thing. It's when you look to are you familiar with the Kybalion?
other. No, I'm not. No.
Okay, that's something I'd recommend anyone to read. The Kybalion is basically Hermetics. Hermes
Yes,
Trismegistus or
yes,
Thoth. Basically, the Kybalion speaks about the seven Hermetic principles, the seven universal principles, which is like the principle of mentalism, the principle of vibration, the principle of cause and effect, the principle of gender, the principle of there's quite a few. But basically, what you were saying is that if you got the plus and a minus on a battery, and you tell yourself, okay, well, minus is negative, and plus is positive, and there is a big difference between the two just because they are polar opposites. But if you have a look at the battery, they're aspect of the same thing. It's a battery with two polar opposites, and what you might regard as negative, somebody else or something else with a different level of perception might see your negative as a positive. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So in that sense, yeah, it's that's where you remove the good and bad, because what's good for somebody is bad for somebody else, and what is cold is hot for somebody else, what is hot is cold for somebody else. So it's all a matter of individual perceptions. Yeah.
100%. And most of our perceptions, what ends up happening, they come from filters of wounding and patterns we've adopted. So most of our perceptions are not even real perceptions.
Yeah.
Really even choosing the perceptions, and we see things for how we perceive them to be and not what they actually are because of the filters of the betrayal, rejection, and abandonment. And then those create
Yeah.
these constructs of security and controlling things and need
Mhm.
for approval. And now you look at everything through that. So if you can change your level of perception, you can change your experience, then you can
Yeah,
change your actions.
it's true. It's true. It's like sometimes when you get these little, we all have these little moments of epiphany in life. Well, I hope that everyone does. I know I do every now and then. I got these little catalytic moments, these little catalysts where I'm like, something has changed. I'm not too sure what it is, but it's like I've just had a mystical experience, and now the moment, there is nothing more than there was before. but I can see what there is more than what I could see before. Sort of like I'm more aware. The colors are more vibrant. The I can feel the air. I can really listen to what's happening around me, and really focus on the present moment more than and and that makes me enjoy being in the moment more. And I mean, it's kind of it's a big wave, you got ups and downs. I mean, I know I'm like that. I'm very when I'm on the up wave, I feel like I'm on the top of the world, and everything is possible, and I get some really good work done, some good writing, or my music, I do some good music when I'm on that. Or and then when it goes low, it's like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I'd literally pay aliens to come and abduct me and take me to another planet. Like, what I mean? It's madness, man. Yeah. Tell you what, man. Should we speak a bit about? I know it's stuff that you must have spoke about already a lot with people. I want to make this chat a bit, original. I want to do something more original. But a lot of people speak about styles. Oh, what's the best style? And this is the style. And I mean, to me, it's a bit low level of consciousness type of question. It's not about the styles; it's about the people. It's really about how much you're willing to invest yourself in your training, how much time you spend training, and also seeing the bigger picture rather than seeing a style or seeing a technique. It's like seeing the concept, the principle behind it, the tactics, the strategies behind it, rather than just focusing on the skill set. You know what I mean? So how did you actually go through that transition? I know that anyone that reach a certain level in the martial arts or in the combatives field had this little shift where it used to be an accumulation of techniques before for me. I did a lot of different martial arts, and I was really, really like excited to go and try a new martial art because I wanted more tools to my toolbox. But then I realized that, well, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. It might be thrown a bit differently in Thai boxing than it is in karate or in Wing Chun, but it's the same thing. Now, what do we do with that kick? What do we do with that punch? What's the strategy? What's the tactic? What's the concept and the principle that we are applying, that the skill set is reflecting? And once you start thinking like that, it's like all of a sudden you free so much space on the hard drive because it's not an accumulation of technique. All of a sudden you have taken your toolbox and you have flipped it upside down, and you got rid of all these tools because you just left with an idea now, with the principles and the concepts, and you're like, right, okay, now that I understand the underlying principle, I can create my own technique. I can create my own skill set. I don't need to have all these techniques in my head. It takes too much space. So when did you go through that shift? Was it with karate, or did you have to actually practice more than one martial arts or many martial arts to get to that conclusion?
I think that no, definitely after the karate stage, it was after when I really got into Judo. And one of the at the same time that I started Judo, I started internal Taiji and Wing Chun traditional.
Yeah.
And at the same time doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Kali. So I started doing all of that. Then the Jeet side, doing the Kali happening because, coming from Paul Vunak, we
Hmm.
we were about adaptability and fluidity right from the start, and body mechanics and attributes and tactics, and everything was that way. So really early on, my thinking was formed that way. And if you look at Bruce Lee's concepts, it was from there. But
Yeah.
at the same time, to be styleless, you have to understand styles. To be formless, you must understand the form. So everybody's got to go through that stage of understanding the form. You cannot appear formless if you have not first studied the form. So you have to go through and understand the form, the structure, the energy, the mechanics, the
Hmm.
awareness of that, and then you have to find it in flow. So once you become structured, this kind of static a little bit, and you make it more dynamic in a flow and an interaction and an exchange, you start building up the pressure, and then you start to become formless with it, and then you really own it, own the concept and the principle. Like you said, for me, it's about principles and process oriented embodiment method. I need to embody the principles, the tactics through a process. It's all about the process, not the
Mhm.
result.
Yeah, it's the
It's the
journey,
it's
not the
the journey
destination.
it is, right? And so all the assessment is yours. You have to assess your process. And are you getting better? That's the
Mhm.
most important thing. But the issue that happens, it's called feed the rice bowl. Feed the rice bowl. It's called feed the rice bowl. I'll explain. It's an
The
old
rice what?
feed the rice bowl.
Oh, the
Like a
rice bowl, okay.
rice bowl, and
Bowl of rice, yeah.
I'll explain where that comes from. In Chinese kung fu for a long time, the sifu is feeding the rice bowl. So you're going, he gives you a technique, you pay for his rice, for his food. So
Alright,
he's
okay, yeah, yeah.
feeding the rice bowl. And so if you take a look at what's happened with most martial arts, is that the student goes to the teacher teaches the technique, and he keeps teaching techniques, so the student keeps coming back so he can make money.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, my process has to be to get you good so you don't need me anymore.
yeah.
That wouldn't be a very good business model.
That
If I
means caring about your students more than caring about the money or caring about yourself.
100%.
So if you
Now,
find a way to accelerate learning, you're gonna teach it as fast and efficiently as you can.
and
Yeah,
what they need, right? Not what you think they need. There's a big difference. Each person is individual and is different. Now,
yeah.
you can be successful at that too if you continue to evolve. Because as you evolve, you got to teach to student level. As you go up to another level, you keep bringing them up the levels. But if you're stuck with this set of stylistic limits of a style and techniques
Mm,
and forms, and that's all you're passing on to them, then
mm,
you're getting them stuck in another box.
yeah.
And so, when we take a look at if you look in the Tao, it's not the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the actual Tao. It
Mhm.
says that being flexible is strength and being fixed is weakness. So when we really look at combat, what do we look at? If we've studied combat enough, we know it's geometric shapes, it's timing, it's angles, it's distance, it's energy, it's sensitivity, it's awareness, it's pressure, and it's emotions.
Yep.
It's all the same. And so we need to have a different lens to look at that, but that requires humility.
Mm,
If there's an ego, you're not going to grow. So it
mhm.
requires humility. I've spent more time and money paying myself to get my ass kicked by teachers than that's where I spent my whole career, because it's getting in those places, being humbled continuously over and over and over again is how you learn. And that's the place you want to be in. So if you can approach it with humility, then the next thing is you're open. We
Mm,
need to come at this with an openness of what do I not know? Even the possibilities of what I think are defined by the possibilities that I think are possible by my own data. Can I go into this not knowing, truly not knowing what's there?
yeah.
That's true openness. Now, if I'm open, martial arts to me, you have to be an explorer. I
Mm,
have to be an
yeah.
explorer's mindset. And so explorer means, okay, let's take this jab. I get together, like let's explore this jab. Let me throw this jab here like this. How did that feel for you? And we talk about it. What do you think about that? You counter it like this. Let's pull out a knife. Let's pull out a stick. Let's do a grappler. Let's explore with all the different things with the jab. There's so much we could
Yeah.
do. But what do people want to do? They want to go learn like 15 hit combinations.
Yeah, job cross
Fine,
quick. Yeah.
which is fine. Okay, it's great that I'm not saying that, but let's talk about, if we really want to talk about where you want to spend your time exploring. You're not exploring, you're memorizing. And most of the time when you're memorizing a 15 hit combination, it's because you have a test because you want to rank and you want to get the next piece of paper, and
Mm,
your confidence is tied to that title instead of the actual execution and understanding of this movement, this pattern, and its application in time and space against first a non-resisting opponent, then
mm,
progressively increasing the resistance to the point where they're 100% non-cooperative.
yeah.
That's where the method is really important. And so if you're an explorer, so now once you're an explorer, you're going to discover something. When you discover something, you're going to learn something. That learning is going to grow. That growth leads to creation, and that's art. It's not art otherwise if it's just repetition. Now you're
Yeah.
making your art. And the most important thing, the D, is that you have to be detached from the result. And if we can do that in our process, we are continuously going to grow. We're continuously going to get better. And you're never going to run out of things to train, things to do. Uh,
Yeah.
and you're always moving, I think that's really important.
I like this approach of just taking one skill set and just drilling that skill set in many as many from many different angles as you can. The first person with who I really learned to do that was Tommy Carruthers in Scotland. And that's I said to you when I arrived there, I had a big toolbox full of tools, and he just flipped it upside down and he went, you will never have enough time to work this. Throw that away. That's not simple enough. Blah 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 blah. He made me stay with five, six tools. That was it. But for that period of time that I was in Glasgow, because I went to live over there just so I could train with a man, it was all geared around those five, six tools, I've never actually did so many drills with just one tool. Just okay. Today we're going to work on the lead hand, and we had that part where okay, lead hand static, lead hand moving forward, lead hand moving back, lead hand pivot left, lead hand sidestepping or breaking down, chunking the body mechanics down, starting from there and then retracting. Or it was just crazy because I was like, okay, that's just a punch. But it was like, how do you get good? How do you sharp every single aspect of that blade? And you have to have a look at that blade from all many different angles, and it's a very, very precise job, like martial arts. Like combatives is a bit different. Obviously, if you know, and I'm sure you're familiar with, you know, the combatives. It's a bit more gross, in terms of the movement. The first time I've seen combatives, I was that doesn't look very nice. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's because I'm a martial artist. I like for me the beauty of the movement is important, fluidity, and I was like, that's not very nice. So the first time I've seen that, and then I trained in it, and I had a big wake up call as well with that when I started to pressure test, and I was like, whoa, okay, well it might not be that nice, but actually, you can actually make this thing work, and now so I'm kind of flowing between the two, between the martial arts and the combatives, between the martial and the art, basically. And it's
Yeah,
kind of finding the
sure.
right balance between the two, the yin and the yang. You know what I mean? Huh?
The art is in the martial.
Martial, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, martial. That's
You see,
good. That I like that.
so
Martial.
no, like you said, I think that so if we approach it, I think we're living in an era now when you look at all martial arts, they fall into sport, tradition, and combatives. And you have
Yeah,
to train in all three to really get the best out of it, right? From sport, if you're not boxing right now and you're not kickboxing or you're not rolling and you're not doing jiu-jitsu and you're not doing these things, you're not understanding the dynamic of resistance and movement. And so that creates something. And so then the argument is, oh, but that's in a rule set. But it's about training method. I
mm,
need that. Then from there, I need to go to the combatives to create scenarios
yeah,
that would occur on the street, but that's going to give me timing, angles, and distance and interactive relationship study that I can now apply to these very specific gross motor tactics,
yeah,
breathing and being in the moment and taking the guy out what I need to do. But then we need the traditional also because that's where we learn to center ourselves,
yeah.
find who we are, do the healing, the inner work,
Mm,
the philosophy. So we're living in an era now when all three, when they come together, you have something really wonderful. And a point to your earlier thing, we can take a tool, and the way I look at it is from an art of war perspective. We all need to have a weapon development system. So you take a weapon and you sharpen it. That's a weapon development system. But then we also need a countermeasure system,
yeah.
and then we need a finishing system, and then we need an attribute development system.
Mm,
If we really look at it, break it down. So if I can have the weapon, Bill G, at my finger jab to the eyes, I've worked it millions and millions of times from every single angle possible. But now I have to develop a countermeasure system because am I assuming that I'm going to take you out with that, hit you, and continue onwards? That's not what a real fight looks like,
mm-hmm.
especially against somebody better than me. I think one of the issues happens is when we train in martial arts, we think we're going to defeat everybody. My whole training has been, what if I'm in a situation better than me? Somebody who's better than me, more skilled than me, more tactical than me,
Yeah.
smarter than me, more intelligent than me, at one point younger than me. What if I'm in that situation? And that has to be the question, that I'm outgunned, outmanned, and I'm supposed to lose. How am I going to figure that out? What is the strategy? That's where I start from.
Mm,
So we need there a countermeasure system. Then I need to understand that if we take a look at like the highest level of jiu-jitsu, you look at the Danaher Death Squad and Gordon Ryan, and in jiu-jitsu you can see it and you can really experience that strategy and you can bring it into other aspects.
mm,
That if I develop a weapon, and sometimes people, okay, let's talk about the Jeet Kune Do, the straight lead. straight leads or a finger jab builds you even faster to the eye. All right. It's the fastest tool you could have, right? The finger jab to the eyes is the fastest tool, and it's in all martial arts, right? It's the fastest tool. So, okay, let's sharpen that and do all the different thousands of drills for it to sharpen it. But my idea cannot be that I have to go one step further and understand, all right, that when I throw this Bill G, if I'm thinking, how am I going to score on you?
Mm.
I'm after winning, and that's limited me. But if I realize that when I throw this Bill G, what it does, this finger jab, what it does in the next moment, in the next beat in time, it limits you to one of two options.
Mm-hmm.
I intercept those one of two options. Now I'm playing chess.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a chess game now.
Now I'm
You're
playing chess.
thinking,
I'm not trying to beat you off the first one.
you're building fight IQ,
I'm
like
building fight
it's
IQ, but what I'm doing is I'm putting you into two options in the next beat in time. And
mm,
then I can intercept that. And so I'm playing in 3 moves ahead. And so if we take a look at why we need to develop a weapon is to play 3 moves ahead, not develop that weapon to finish it on the first beat with that weapon. If I could do it, great. Then
mm,
good day in the office. But that's not what we need to prepare for.
yeah, yeah. Worst
And
case scenario is what you want to prepare for, yeah.
100%. And then it's like, okay, what if when I'm doing this, he's smarter and he figures that out and he counters me. He
Mm,
counters me before, during, or after. And then when he counters me, can he counter me? Is he going to loop around? Is he going to shoot underneath? Is he going to
mm,
crash through? What are all the different stylistic variabilities of them countering me? And
mm,
so when people say don't study other styles and be stuck in one thing and all you need is one tool, the issue there is that maybe, but you need to understand what other people do to understand their timing, their angles, their distance, and their pressure. So you can take your Lego block and fit it with their Lego block,
yeah.
right? If we're not doing that, we're living in a fantasy world.
Mm,
And that's I think that's where the explore that's where the fun is, right? That's why I'm a nerd. We're all martial arts nerds. Come on, it's awesome. We
mm,
think about these scenarios. How does this fit with this? How would this fit? But to understand how this fits with this, I need to know what this is. I don't
yeah.
need to master it per se, but I need to know what this is. Because if we look now, as to your earlier question about styles and systems,
Mhm.
we're in an era now that we should be far beyond that consideration. And really what it comes down to now is the transition. Actually,
Mhm.
most people don't understand Wing Chun. And if you look at Wing Chun, the actual definition of what Wing Chun means is elegant spring.
Mhm.
Elegant spring is the transition between winter and summer. So
Okay.
what Wing Chun really means is elegant transition.
Mhm.
When people went to Wing Chun, they were already well versed in striking and they were well versed in grappling. And they'd maybe come from a Shaolin system or a system that was a hard style system that understood striking, grappling, and throwing and weaponry. And now, when they studied Wing Chun, it was to give you that transitional moment in time. That's why when you look at the art, there's no entries, there's no movements of that thing because it's a transition. You already know I need to know how to box and wrestle. If
Yeah.
you don't know how to box and wrestle, Wing Chun is going to be very difficult for you.
Yeah.
But if you know how to box and wrestle, and that moment in time where you can deflect or you can take their base and their balance, because that's the thing with trapping is you're not trapping the limbs, you're trapping their
Yeah.
center of gravity. So if you trap their center of gravity, but you take their balance, now they don't have an art. You've stolen their art for that moment in time
Mm.
for you to then do your takedown, do your leg kick, do your hook, escape, whatever you want.
It's
And
it's
again, it's just such a fascinating thing, but when we get stuck because and I know why the issue happens, we love our sifus. We love our teachers. We love the stories, right? We wanna say, "Ah, I'm Wing Chun, I'm jujitsu, I'm
yeah.
this and I'm that." I'm like,
Lineage. You stay stuck with one lineage. Like that's where I belong to.
it's loyalty, right? Which is great too, which is
Mhm.
I have loyalty to my lineages too, but at the end of the day, there's also the truth in combat of what's actually happening
Yeah.
versus what I want to happen. And
Mhm.
that's where, we went on a tour with my Sifu, of China, and we went to all the different Wing Chun schools, from Foshan to, um, Hong Kong to, we went to Shaolin, we went to Chen Village, we went all over Shanghai, and we rolled with all the different people over there. And for me, I was like, "Okay, the great hands, Wing Chun hands," and I said, "But this hook over the top is always open. This
Mm.
arm drag to the neck is always there." And
Yeah.
it's not fault. It's just they haven't trained that pattern. And so that's where the when I went to learn takedown defense, Coach John Clark, who's was an alternate for the Puerto Rican wrestling team, a strike force fighter. So I went to him. I was like, I want to learn takedown defense. And he said to me, okay, then you need to learn the takedown. I said,
Hmm.
okay. I'm like, hey, you're the teacher. I'll do whatever you want. So I started learning takedowns, learning the proper mechanics, how to do it, what it's all about. He's like, if you don't know the takedown, you can't defend against it. Just like with a knife, if I don't know how to
Yeah,
use it, I can't really defend against it,
I
right?
agree with that. Yeah,
And so if we take a look at all knife fighting, it starts with let's teach you knife fighting so you can learn to defend against the blade.
it's true.
And but the fascinating thing that happened was the more I wrestled, I went to it from wanting to learn takedown defense to then adopting skills of actual wrestling. Then I could apply against people that didn't know wrestling, and it helped me a lot in my jujitsu and stuff like that as well. But
Yeah.
I think that when we're open and we go with a problem, here I want to solve this problem. Sometimes we get answers that are greater than the problem we're looking to solve.
Mm. I do agree with that. It's especially when you say with the blade, it's something that I have experienced a lot because I always loved to train with knives ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I don't know if I told you, but my father was in the French Special Forces, and
Oh,
he
I
was
didn't
an
know.
instructor as well. He was a hand-to-hand combat instructor and
Okay.
CQB tactics and all the shebang, mate. And I was lucky enough to assist him in Eastern Europe, all over Eastern Europe, to provide training for various governmental units. So we worked with the Second Regiment of Internal Forces of Lithuania, the special intervention group of the Second Regiment of Internal Forces of Lithuania, and the rapid reaction teams in Lukiškės. It's a jail. It's a big penitentiary in Vilnius. So and so we did some blade work, and I was that's what my father was saying. Like, in order to gain maturity, combative maturity with empty when you go empty hand against a blade, which is one of the most dangerous thing in the martial arts. Everyone wants to focus on this first, but it's like, dude, there is so much we need to have a look at before we get to that. And and for me, it was learning to use a blade in its offensive context, to obviously, with all the maturity that's required, it needs to be regarded as an art. And I mean, when you see me with what I do with the blade, with the intention, with the aggression and all that, some people are like, whoa, you're gonna get jailed, man. Like, I mean, this is just overkill and stuff like that. But if you know if you know how to use a blade in that sense, and now you can put yourself on the other side, and you're like, dude, how would I deal with me with a blade? Shit, I wouldn't even go there. Like, I don't think I could deal with me with a blade. I don't think I could do that. I mean, I'd certainly try my best if my life was in danger, or the life of my loved ones, but I don't know if I would do very well. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
true, man.
yeah.
It's just seeing one side, having to explore one side in order to understand the other side. Very, very important. And some people don't agree with that. And I'm like, how? How do you?
I agree with everything you just said. I think it's really important. I mean, you have to learn the knife fight before blade on blade. You need to get the footwork, the timing, the angles, and like you said, the most important thing that you said here that I want people to understand is that you need to look at them looking at you.
Mm,
You need to become them. So when I'm looking at my opponent, oftentimes we're just looking at the opponent. But you ever get that feeling when somebody's tracking you? I mean, it gets kind of dangerous. You're like, holy shit, this guy's tracking me. Well, we got to go one level further and we got to track them tracking us. So we make them
mhm,
see what we want them to see. But we can't get to that point until we can actually connect and be them looking at us and
mhm,
be looking at us through their eyes. Right? And that can only happen if we understand what is the context, what is the intention, what is their attention on, what is important to them. And I think that's we focus all the time on what is important to us
yeah.
instead of saying what is important to them. What is it that they want? If I do not understand what my enemy wants and what's important to
Mhm.
them, I'm always going to be behind.
Like, in order to deal with the predator, you must become the predator. It's like Sun Tzu, saying like, know yourself and know the enemy, so that you can have a better
100%.
chance to win the battle. Yeah.
And that knowing the enemy You know, that is the central theme of the art of war.
Mm.
Nothing in the art of war. So like the art of war here sits on my desk here. The old bamboo scrolls.
Wow.
And so it sits right here on my desk every day. And my
Mm.
Sifu said, hey, you need to understand this, not just in combat, in every aspect of your life. You have to understand what this philosophy is and how you use it. But the central theme of it is know yourself and know your enemy. And if we go back to our beginning conversation, that knowing yourself is knowing your masks. And it's
Mm.
doing all that internal work that people don't understand that allows you then to get to the point to who is executing the strategy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the mask executing strategy or is it me closer to my center executing strategy. It's going to be two different things. Who am I really fighting? So I think that's such an important thing. And when we talk about knife fighting, um, it's a very dangerous thing, and it's nothing to be taken lightly. You're going to get cut. Pray you don't die,
Yeah.
and can you escape? I mean, these are the things, of course, that we all know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what people want, and my personal opinion is that when you're looking at dealing with a blade, there's schools of thought that say grab the blade. Then there's schools of thoughts that say strike. Then
I
there's
think
schools of
I
thoughts.
think you need to explore both of them.
I know I'm going right there. That's where I'm going. And so there's some that'll say get a hold of the blade and grapple the blade. Then there's
Spot
others
on.
that'll
Yeah.
say let's deflect and avoid and create space. And others will say let's hit. I'm saying that which is the one that you could pull off. Because if you take a look and you say somebody who's saying grab the blade, they're probably coming from a grappling art. You need to be stronger. You need
Yeah.
to know how to do this. If you're a jiu-jitsu person, then that's probably a better option for you because you have the attributes and the training.
Yeah.
If you're a boxer, you need to use your distance and you drop that dude because you're used to dropping people.
Yeah.
But then the thing comes back, you're like, if you think you're going to knock somebody out, you have to ask yourself how many times have you knocked somebody out under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
These are questions you have to ask. And then the evasion. So, like you said earlier, you have evasion, you have controlling or grabbing the limbs or whatever. Maybe you're controlling the posture, and then you have evasion. And your training has to be able to go through all three because you don't know what's going to happen when, where you might end up. You might end up on the ground. You might end up running. Can you get an equalizer? Is there multiple opponents? There's
Yeah.
so many variables
Absolutely.
that your only certainty can come from your ability to adapt.
Yeah.
That's it.
Adaptability. You're right.
Your adaptability is your only certainty in an uncertain event. And if you get fixed and say, I'm going to grab this with two hands and I'm going to wrestle this person to the ground, or if you say, I'm going to parry and hit the person, you've come in with a fixed plan in a
Mm.
very dangerous situation, even against somebody who's untrained, who's whacked out on some drugs, who's angry, who's upset, they've got a blade. That makes it even worse in a sense because there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing to you.
Yeah. Plus, they will not feel pain the same. Like their
Okay.
energy is going to be increased. Do you know the thing when we speak about counter blade tactics? I don't even like to call it knife defense because there is no knife defense. I don't believe in knife defense. I think that it's all about preservation and damage limitation. That's what really we should focus on
And
that topic.
actually,
Uh,
and
and so the first thing is like, okay, so whether you choose to parry and throw a left hook or parry and throw a right cross to the head, and which is stuff that I train, I love to do it for the attribute development aspect of it. You might be able to put it off or you might not be able to, but the same thing is, okay, let's say now it's a bit closer and you have to fend the blade and you have to go with a 2-on-1, whether it's a Russian tie or it's on the inside or on the outside, where it doesn't matter. But you first have to grab the limb successfully without dying, and that man is the most difficult thing when you have an individual in front of you that's completely determined to send you to the morgue. And I always said to people, it's like, okay, so a lot of people focus on the blade. A lot of people, their main focus is the blade, like the blade is the weapon, but the blade is just an extension of the weapon. Is the branch, of the tree. It's like the blade on its own, you put it on the table, it's not gonna hurt anyone. You know what I mean? And if you grab the guy, once you grab the guy, unless you're a really good wrestler and you got really good control and you break his arm straight away, if the guy's got at least a little bit of play, now he understands that he's fighting for his life as well. Before he thought he had an edge because he had the blade. So his mental space before you grab him is different than his mental space when you already grabbed him. Now he's like, fuck, 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 fuck. If he takes that blade from me, I'm fucked. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's why I said that the real weapon is the mind, is the intention to cause deadly harm, and that's what needs to be dealt with. Like, if you break somebody's arm, it's great, but I got a problem with people just trying to take the blade off the person, just focusing. Their main focus is disarm the knife, disarm the knife. How about disarm the threat by knocking the guy out? That's probably
100%.
one of the best way to disarm the threat, neutralize the threat.
100%. I agree with you 100% on that, man, because I think that, when there's a time for that 2-on-1 when he gives it to you,
Yeah.
not when you chase it. If I chase it as my primary strategy,
Oh.
you got me in a lot of trouble. But in the scuffle, there
Mm.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
In the scuffle, I push him off. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
In the scuffle, I frame and create some space. And I think that's the part that we have to explore and experiment with, because no two interactions will ever be the same. And so if you don't, again, it's your adaptability and
Yeah.
changeability, right? Because there may be a chance when you're putting pressure on me that I can do the arm drag and do 2-on-1, smash you against the wall.
Mm.
But I don't need to stay there. Maybe I separate from there and do a hook. Maybe I smash your head. Maybe I kick you in the leg. And like you said earlier, oftentimes it's the other hand that we need to look at, because the guy reaches with the left before he stabs with the right. So
Yeah.
everybody's focused on the blade. He's
Mm.
reaching here. You could have just parried that and gotten off the side. He's trying to
Mm.
grab you. Did you handle the hand controlling your neck, controlling you? But I think what happens again is the fear of the blade and a fixation and an attachment to one strategy and one idea, instead of going and working it and making it your own. Because let me tell you something, if you're teaching a woman or somebody who's smaller to grab, they're never going, I don't care if you got some Herculean strong guy. Strength is a martial art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we forget, right? Like, somebody's strong, you're dead. And sometimes
Mm.
I see that in people teaching, like the grabbing and kimuras and arm dragging on a larger opponent. I mean, this is insane. And so we have to look at the person, the individual, their
Yeah.
mentality, their experience, how much do they train?
Mm.
All those have to be considered. And then can you do it under pressure?
Yeah.
Uh, but adaptability, it's almost like you have to get to the point where there's no plan.
It's
And
true. Yeah.
there can be no, we have to train the scenarios,
Yeah.
but when I go into it, there has to be no plan. I'm open, whatever you want, go.
Spontaneity, fluidity, adaptability.
I
Where
gotta,
like
I gotta
now,
get to the point that I don't care. Can
yeah.
I get to the point that I don't care what you do? Then I'm out of my way and I'm 100% adaptable to what you do. I can join with you, I can follow with you, I can adapt to what you're going to do. But
Mm.
that has to be created in our drills. That
Yeah.
that mindset, that construct, not this is oh yeah, this is my strategy. Now
Yeah.
you're stuck to the strategy, and if it doesn't work, what happened?
You're dead.
Right?
It's crazy, man.
Interesting
How?
to me, you
Yeah.
know?
How about, continuing on the same topic, but now like moving on to mindset. So adaptability, fluidity, all the stuff very important, because now you're able to deal with the situation as it comes to you. Yeah. But how about now the mastery of your mind, being ready on a mental and emotional level, uh face your fear, meditate on death, like Bruce Lee used to say. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but he said, you always want to learn how to win, but you never want to accept the way to lose. And to learn to accept defeat, to learn to die, is to be liberated from it. So when tomorrow comes, you have to learn the art of dying. um, I'll tell you, I had to meditate on death for different reason, because I was deeply unhappy when I was a bit younger, and I was like, "What is it? What is death? Am I ready for it? Am I inviting it? Am I scared? Am I afraid of it? What is it?" I remember when I was a little kid, and one day I cried, and my mother came to see me, and she was like, "Why do you cry?" And I said, "I don't want to die." It's like, it's already, I knew as a kid that death is an illusion, but my ego, because I was new and everybody was saying, you one day you're gonna die, one day you're gonna get old and you're gonna die. And I was crying, because in my head I was, how is that possible? I thought we were living forever. Do you know what I mean? Like every kid's know that. We all know that we live forever as kids. It's just surprise when somebody comes to you and say, one day you're going to die. What? You know what I mean? So it's like later on, I have been meditating on this, and I'm unfortunately maybe even at some point I was welcoming it. You know what I mean? I was that unhappy that I was. If it's coming, it's coming. That's it. If it's my time, it's my time. And I think it's needed to a certain extent. I'm not saying it's life is beautiful. We need to enjoy life. We need to enjoy every moment. But in order to enjoy every moment, we need to understand that we are mortal in this lifetime. Anyway, that if you don't understand that, if you don't make friend and make peace with death, then you cannot live your life to the fullest. I don't think it's possible. And so I've had a few near death experience that were triggered by psychedelics and plant medicine, and where I thought that was it. I seriously, I seen all my life pass in front of me in a fraction of a second, and I was, that's it now, Julian, you're going to die. And at first, my ego was like, no, 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 no. You know, like my ego was like, no, 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 I don't want to die, I don't want to die. You know, it's just panicking in my head. Even my heart rate, everything was like accelerating. And then there is a voice, a calm voice that said to me, that's it, Julian. Now you're going to die. That's it. Just, it's fine. It's all right. Do you know what I mean? And when I said to myself, it's fine, it's all right, that experience stopped. And here I was alive. Do you know what I mean? And I was, shit, I'm still alive. Do you know what I mean? But so how do you, and I mean, since then, my perception about death has changed. Since then, I'm realizing, if I have to do something that's dangerous, like if I work on the doors and I have to face an armed assailant, that has happened not too long ago, where I'm like, right, I could die, but if I die, I die. If it's my time, it's my time. And if I'm righteous, if I'm a light worker, if I'm not a dark worker, if I'm really in for the universe and for life, and I'm pro life, and I'm assisting life, and I'm helping life, then I believe that the universe will step in the way of death for me, if that makes any sense. I will have some sort of protection from the universe because I'm working with the universe and not against it. If that makes any sense. I mean, I do believe that. That's a belief that I have, that if you work with life, life will work with you, and life will be there for you when you need it. So now you're having to go and face an individual that's armed, somebody that's got a blade, or let's continue with the blade, for example. How do you get your head right? How do you get your head right so that now when you go to that battle and you understand that you could possibly die, how do you get ready to die?
Well, I think that, everything you said about it is important. If we take a look at fear is the mother of all emotions, right?
Yeah.
Death is the greatest fear of all of us. That's why we
Yeah.
don't like to talk about it. We don't
Mm.
like to face it. We don't want to consider it. When you take a look at what death magic that's contemplation that everybody needs to do. And I don't mean it in a weird way. I mean it in a very positive way, and I'll explain.
Mhm.
Death is certain. It's on all of our to-do lists. So, my Sifu said, you do a to-do list. Everybody does a to-do list. Well, number one on your to-do list, you need to write, I am going to die. It's number one on your to-do list. And I go,
Mhm.
what do you mean? And he goes, well, he goes, are you grateful for your life? I'm like, yes, of course I'm grateful. He's like, are you really grateful? Let me share something with you. I said, okay. He said, when you go to sleep at night, are you grateful for the day you had? I'm like,
Gratitude, yeah.
gratitude, 100%. He's like, when you
Yeah.
wake up, are you grateful? I'm
Mhm.
like, yes. I'm like, he's like, let's turbocharge this. I said, okay. And he called it the warrior's prayer. And he said, if you understand this one fact, and these two check-in points in the morning and in the night, that when you go to sleep at night, you're grateful for the day you had.
Mm.
In the morning, that first breath, you're grateful for it. But let's make it more powerful. He said, because one day you're going to wake up in the morning and not go to sleep at night.
Mhm.
One day you're going to go to sleep at night and possibly not wake up in the morning.
Mhm.
You just don't know when that day is. It could be today,
Mhm.
tomorrow. It could be 40 years from now.
Mhm.
So it's on your to-do list. So if a death is on your mind, your real fear should be not living fully. And the only way you can live fully is if you understand that we are not mortal, and that if you
Yeah.
consider and contemplate on death, that today could be your last day, then when the guy flips you off on the street, you're not going to react. Then when somebody's angry and pissed off at you, you can say a prayer for them, because you understand that hurt people hurt people. Everybody's going through something, but we
Mm,
start reacting to these people because we don't understand that death is certain. And so, am I wasting my precious life force energy getting involved in these things,
mm,
reacting to these things, giving my energy and thoughts and mind and spirit to these things that are all inconsequential?
yeah.
But if I understand that, that's very important. So if I'm living my life like that, first and foremost, that's very important. The second thing is when we take a look at a combat situation, that's where you have to die to yourself. That if I am not there, then you have nothing to kill. But if I am there, me, present, and it's like you have to develop that mentality of being a ghost, that you don't care. Can you go into that situation and everything else goes away? Your idea of yourself goes away. Can you get to that still point of time and space? Can you get to that center? No more masks.
Mm,
That's why when I had that experience in the street fight, when I was attacked, that's what had happened. I was absolutely free. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have the training in that time
mm,
to do something. But everything else was there. I was 100% free. And so when you're free, it's very peaceful. Peace is a choice in chaos. It's not the absence of it.
mm,
Fear is a choice. Sorry, courage is a choice when you're afraid, and happiness is a choice in the struggle. It's not the absence of struggle. It's not the absence of fear, and it's not the absence of chaos. So if I understand that that's the fundamental function of nature and of the laws, and if today's my time to go, then today's my time to go. But I'm
mm,
not going to interfere and help you, help me, kill me by letting my ideas get in the way, my fears get in the way. Then I'm outnumbered, especially when
yeah.
the mind talks starting to talk. So the training has to get to the point that before we can get to doing it in a fight, in a full life and death situation, the question everybody always says, and you mentioned it earlier, that the mind is the greatest weapon.
Mm,
You ask any great athlete, business person, special forces soldier, whatever, what do
mindset.
they always say? 90% of success is mindset.
Mm,
Okay, so then I have a question to ask everybody listening. If 90% of success is mindset, then how much time, energy, resources have you spent on your mindset?
dedicating to that. Yeah.
And that will give you the answer of how well you're going to perform in that situation.
Mm,
If you are training your mind, first stillness and stillness, you need a stillness and stillness practice. That means you're not moving, you're standing or you're seated and you're completely still, and you can get to the point beyond the thoughts of your mind. And when one of the issues that happens, there's people say, "Oh, you got to shut off the thoughts." No, no, that doesn't work.
mushing. Yeah.
You need to become an observer of the thoughts. And when you observe the thoughts long enough, you no longer react to them. Your heart and mind quiets on its own. Then the next thing is you have to have stillness and movement. Can I have that cultivated state that I did there?
Mm,
Can I get to the stillness and the movement? Then once I have it there, can I keep that stillness while I'm moving in progressive chaos?
yeah.
And so I
That's
have to take it all the way there. Now, the interesting thing is, one of these three is not more important than the other, because there's people we take, special forces soldiers, nightclub bouncers, you put them in chaos, they're there.
mm,
But you put them in stillness and stillness, they can't do it.
that's the next thing I wanted to tell you about is the two kind of strategies, the mindset strategies that I've encountered in my days with martial arts and combatives. So martial arts kind of always teach you the stillness, or at least most of the martial arts, especially traditional ones, and even boxing and Thai boxing, and you need to be still when you're fighting. You jump on the ring. I remember the first time I jumped on the ring, I couldn't even hear my coach. He was shouting at me, and then I replayed the video, and I was shit. He was giving me instruction. He was telling me to do this, to do that. I had that auditory exclusion, tunnel vision, hyperventilation, or everything just, and so I realized that it's about, okay, you got that stillness. If you can manage to internalize in a way where now if you jump on the ring, and before the fight starts, you got all these people watching you, and you're like, you're stressed, man. You're anxious, you know. And then the bell goes, and you just forget about the people. You completely forget about the people, and now you're like, this is me and my opponent, and what do I do? But then the quality of your stillness will determine whether you're able to think while you're fighting, in fight thinking, or fight IQ, where now, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. What is he gonna do? How is he reacting? Okay, I'm gonna do this. Oh, that's how he reacts. Oh, I just did this and that hurt him. I'm gonna do that again. Oh shit, he blocked it. Now I'm gonna do that. Or I'm gonna set a pattern, then I'm gonna break a pattern, and you start thinking like this. Would you say that this is the most efficient way to be, or the other way that I've learned in more in the combatives world, which is controlled unleashed aggression, but like proper aggression, like proper, like Bruce Lee used to say, emotional content. You know
Sure.
what I mean? So like when you punch, like you're putting all your aggression in there, like cold clinical aggression, so that it's not something that should be mistaken with red mist, or anger or hate, because
Sure.
that stuff is going to blind you. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to die. You're going to kill someone. It's not what you want to do. But if you got that controlled unleashed aggression now, not only you might be still inside, but the way that you are perceived by the assailant or by the opponent is completely different. Now you're dealing with them on the psychological level as well as you are dealing with them on the physical level. Would you say this is an interesting concept, or just the stillness of being completely still, no emotion, and just fights like almost like a mechanical robot, or having this aggression, and like when you see the tigers fighting, and you look at them slow motion and look at the facial expression, and not a single movement is wasted. Even everything is there. Do you know what I mean? The
100%.
substance is there.
So I
Yeah.
think that so stillness is the master of unrest.
Mm,
It has to be the master. So let me explain. So there's when you take a look in there, you know when you see those actually right here, this is that's an ancient symbol. That's a dragon
okay.
and that's a tiger. It's like 3,000 years old. Yeah. And so, sometimes you see those Chinese paintings of the green dragon and the white tiger. You see them hanging all over the place.
Yes.
Okay. So those are two aspects of ourselves that have to be cultivated equally. So when you're talking about the combative side, that's the tiger, the animal. You have to develop that animal. You have to understand that aggression. Okay. That's one aspect of the training. But then there has to be something that's in charge of the tiger.
Mm,
And that's the dragon. That's your consciousness. That's your stillness. That's your awareness. That still has control. Let's say you got in a situation and you unleashed the tiger and the situation's nullified, but you kept going and you killed the guy.
yeah.
What was there to pull the leash back?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's a consideration. Another consideration is, let's say you do go fully all out. How long can you sustain that state?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on the fight. How long is the fight going to go? Were you able to take the person out? Is there multiple opponents? How long can you last? So all of those considerations have to be taken. But I think that if we can cultivate a state, the most important thing to me that I've noticed, and when you look at the tigers, actually,
Mm,
they're actually very relaxed.
yeah.
So even though it looks like aggression, if you look at their muscles and how they're moving, they are completely relaxed.
I mean, there's no wasted motion. Yeah.
Wasted motion, but they're relaxed. So they're not
Mhm.
like this.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
doing everything with the intention is there.
Yeah.
They're relaxed. So I
Yeah.
have these 5 R's. You have to be relaxed and ready. That's the yin yang.
Yeah.
Then you have to be rooted,
Uh-huh.
relaxed, ready, rooted deep into the ground. And then the next thing you have to be is when you're relaxed, you're ready, rooted to respond,
Yeah.
not react.
Yeah.
Um,
Action always beats reaction. Yeah.
It does, but am I choosing a response or am I just reacting? And the final R, it's a responsive relationship. So am I relaxed and ready and rooted and to respond? That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a relational response with them. So it can't just be what I want to impose on somebody.
Yeah.
If I say what I want to impose on you, that'll only work if I can impose that on you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not relationally changing. So there may be certain situations and circumstances in which that will work. And you have to be able to see what you could do on that upper spectrum. And then that brings in the other part of within a fight. Can you take your inner fight rest?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes when we just let it all go out, and hopefully we finished it, then we're extremely tired. But when you're extremely tired, you make mistakes. When you're exhausted or you're extremely stressed, you make mistakes. And then the next thing is, what if it's something that's lasting longer and didn't go the way you wanted? Can you, within all that, do you have the ability to pause and rest within the aggression? Do you have
That's
the
that's
pause?
that's interesting. Resting within the fight. Something I had difficulties to my Muay Thai coach, Panikos Yusuf, who's one of the top fighters in the world. He fights in one championships. Uh, Always says to me, "Rest, Julian. Just economy, just rest." And I'm like, "How the heck am I supposed to rest? I got a big guy just unloading big bombs on me. Like how?" It's just learn to rest. Learn to rest while you're not throwing anything. You need to learn to breathe a certain way. And it's not only about resting, it's about not panicking. Because when you're panicking, you're not resting.
100%.
And that's what stillness is. And now we're coming to the realm of stillness within motion and motion within stillness.
Yeah.
How do you, it's like, do you remember I spoke to you about Dragon Ball Z last time I spoke to you? Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a little thing that I remember when at the end of Dragon Ball, the series Dragon Ball, before the series Dragon Ball Z starts, Goku is going to the Watcher of the Earth, and he's learning about meditation. He's learning about what we're talking about now, stillness within motion and motion within stillness. And so the master gave him a bell, like a little cat bell, them little bells, and he's got that bell on him, and he needs to move and do all that stuff without making the bell ring. But he needs to be fast. He needs to punch fast without making the bell move. And he's like, "How is that possible? How can I keep the bell still while I'm in motion?" Do you know what I mean? So I mean that's another thing. Like you get into some deep realm. Like how do you wrap your head around this? Like stillness within motion. I tell you, do you know it's like the wheel of a bicycle. When you spin it really, really fast, it appears motionless, because it's spins so fast that it appears motionless. And it's the same thing with the atom, for example. The atom, that's like a microscopic tiny solar system that spins so fast that when you look at yourself, it looks like it's not moving, but you're made of 37.2 trillion cells that are vibrating so fast that it seems motionless. So we are stillness within motion and motion within stillness already. But how do we apply this in combat? Now that
And that's what the practice has to be towards. So the way that has to happen is static, dynamic, and then in a relationship. There's just the
Mhm.
three ways. So you have static, that's stillness, static, nothing, no pressures on you. Dynamic, now you're moving. And then finally in an interaction. And in that interaction, you have to first then you have to progressively be able to keep it when somebody's feeding you.
Yeah.
Then you go to counter for counter. Can you keep it at that time? When I do something, you counter me. Can I keep it in that exchange? And then
Mhm.
from there, can we get into an intelligent sparring method where it's a cooperative sparring in the sense that you and I are playing roles and we're sparring, not just you feeding me. You're trying to stop me, but you're playing a role. And then we change that energies and change the frequencies and go back and forth between them. Then you got to
Mhm.
go back to one, come back. But really, what it all comes down to at the end of the day, the most important thing that everybody can practice is their breath management and slowing down your heart rate. Because
Yes.
you have to be able to, the actual most functional thing you have to be able to do is slow your heart rate down. So
Mhm.
the training that we do, for example, is a lot of times people take their heart rate up and try to maintain it at a high level.
Mhm. Yeah.
I get it differently. I
Mm.
wanna put my heart rate up, and
Yeah.
how quickly can I bring it down?
Yes.
And how quickly can I bring it down while I'm in action?
Yeah.
So I do things to raise my heart rate up, and once the heart rate's up, I don't try to stay there. I try to bring myself down while I'm still executing something.
Yeah.
And that you start doing that, and you have physical evidence doing that, how quickly you can do it, and you get better and better and better and better in doing it. I mean, you look at Hickson. So when I first started jujitsu, 2006, our jujitsu is, of course, very heavily influenced by Rickson Gracie because she was Paul's
Mhm.
teacher. and make yourself comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. But what is the science of that? It's by expanding the comfort zone. So if you look at Hickson's strategy, he was saying, okay, you know what I'm going to do is while we're rolling, I'm going to keep bringing my heart rate down. So let's say we both started and we're both
Mm,
at 120. I'm going to start bringing myself down to 80 and you're still resisting and you're
mhm,
going up to 140,
mhm.
150. Now,
Yeah.
when I'm at 80 and you're at 150, I push to 140, push you over 200, and you self implode. So
Mm,
that idea is very important. And if it's the root of all your training,
yeah.
and because it's the most important things, when I say I teach something called combat chess, right? And combat chess, the queen of all moves is the finger jab to the eye. Because like a queen, it can move in any direction. It can be an
Mhm.
offense, it can be defense, it can be before, during, after timing. Every martial art has it. It's the most versatile, fastest tool, like a queen on a chessboard.
Yeah.
But the king is your breath, because you can
Yeah.
only breathe one beat at a time, one moment at a time. You can only move once. And if you look at the concept of chess, is not to kill the other person's king, it's to defend yours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if my goal is to defend my breath always, and I'm consciously always aware of what's happening in my breath and my gas tank, and it's not that I go to my breath when I'm gassed.
Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
Panic
Too
response is
late.
already.
Yeah.
But if my training is all about with my breathing, because it's my breath that takes the breath is the portal to the still point of time and space. The
Yes.
still point of now. I'm not in the future, I'm not in the past. And
Mhm.
when you split that time and space veil, the breath is how you get into it. If you're not aware of your breathing, then you're in a panic response system. You're in the
Yeah.
future, you're in the past, you're worrying, you're yipping and yapping. And then it's going to come down to, how much stamina, a little bit of luck, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But when I'm training, I remember, especially in early days of jujitsu, and even now, you're getting smashed all the time,
Yeah.
just trying to survive. And so
Mhm.
everything's about the breath. I need to last a little bit longer. I'll tell you how it saved my life one day. I shouldn't be alive. Like yourself, I've had many near death experiences, but this time it was from a wave. And jujitsu and this concept we're talking about saved my life. So sometimes what happens is students think you could do all sorts of crazy shit, right? And
Mm.
they don't, they just think you're a teacher, so you could do anything. So we're in Hawaii. There's a place in Hawaii called Sandy Beach.
Mhm.
And Sandy Beach is a place that has shore breaks about 15 foot overhead that's come out of nowhere. So that means, for those who don't understand, if I'm standing in water at my waist, all of a sudden out of nowhere, a 15-foot wave appears above you. And you're
Mm.
about, 30 meters from shore, so you can't run back. So
Yeah.
the first time we're in these waves, going there, and all of a sudden they just looked at me and they yelled, "Duck dive." I don't know what that is. Nobody explained what that was. So it looked to me like they were diving into the face of the wave. So I dove into the face of the wave. The wave took me up 15 feet in the air, body slammed me down into the ground. And then it's like a washing machine. Every thing turns black. You don't know what's up. You don't know what's down.
Mm.
And in that moment was another one of those moments where I just had to let go of my need to breathe. I
Mhm.
let go of my desire to live and just relax. And that was all from the training of being choked and being smashed, and
Yeah.
over and over, bringing my heart rate down, relaxing, bringing my heart rate down, relaxing. And that allowed me to last one extra moment,
Yeah.
however long I was under, from moment to moment to moment, to get my feet on the ground, push off, come up and take a breath. And then I
Mhm.
learned lesson number two is that waves come in sets. And so it happened again. The same thing went down. And again, it's just like being choked. It's almost there. You want to give up. You can't. Relax, relax,
Mm.
relax. Let go of the
Yeah.
tension. You let go of the tension. You relax a little bit longer. And that keeps going. Again, I got out of it, made my way to shore. Then I sat there and I looked at the wave for the next hour. And I was like, what? I can't leave. They can't leave this way. So
Mm.
when they finally came out, they're like, duck dive. I said, what is a duck dive? Like, well, a duck dive is when you put your chest right on the floor. Your chest has to hit the floor. So when
Right.
your chest hits the floor, you have about a foot and a half of a
Mhm.
window.
Mhm.
That's complete stillness,
Uh-huh.
and the wave passes over.
Passes over you.
This whole stillness we're talking about. So then when I went back and I did it, again, it's that same beautiful experience again. You hit down there and it's like nothing. You
Yeah.
see the sound, the wave, all of that going over you. And you're like, holy shit, this is really beautiful. But that really beautiful is defined by the death going above you. And so
Yeah.
we're talking about it, death defines the beauty of life. That
Yeah.
that situations and obstacles can be opportunities for us to feel an experience of life that is so beautiful if we can get ourselves out of the way and see it for what it actually is versus through our filters, our masks, our securities, controls, approvals, rejections, betrayals, abandonments that make us view the world in a certain limited way
Mm.
and experience in a certain limited way. And then that determines the actions that we take. And that's crazy because it's not even real.
It's awesome, man. And do you know what? It's like when you speak about breathing, and that's another massive topic, like breath work. And there's so many different types of breath work, and so many different things you can do with breath work. But in a combative sense, that's one thing, when I teach, when I say, right, okay, so if your heart rate goes above 175 beats per minute, 100, like 200 beats per minute or more, that's when you freeze. That's when your nervous system kind of almost kind of freeze, and you can't do stuff, depending on how well you deal with stress and adrenaline. But lowering your heart rate through breath work is a way for you to regain your cognitive functions as well, because when your heart rate goes above like 90, 100 beats per minute, already there is a cognitive shift, where the blood rushes away from the neocortex prefrontal lobe to gather at the center, where the limbic system, or reptilian brain, when we say we go reptilian brain. And and that will also impair your motor, how do you call that, your motor functions, basically. So by lowering your heart rate down below a certain threshold through breath work, you regain these cognitive function, and that allows you to keep more motor functions. So that's very important thing, definitely breath work. And the way that I breathe before I know that I'm gonna have to deal with something potentially dangerous. For example, if I'm on the doors and I know, okay, we gotta go now. We gotta intervene, and it's a violent situation. I know I might get hurt. I know there is a danger there, and I'm gonna try to have a good four, five reps of nice breath. Like a box breathing,
Yep.
just like 4 second inhale, 4 second hold, 4 second exhale, 4 second hold. If I got the time, obviously, if I got the time to do just one as I'm walking there, then it is what it is. But I find that helps. It really does help, and that's on the combative level of breath work. And then there is the breath work that I've learned when I had my spiritual awakening, which was the breath of creation. And apparently, that's how we've been created. Apparently, that you can breathe life into things, you can breathe life into ideas, you can breathe life into your own creations, your own ideas. That then, it's like your ideas are born on the spiritual realm, and then the spiritual realm transfers that energy into the mental realm, and then that energy becomes an idea in the mental realm, and then that energy in the mental realm creates energy in motion, which are emotion, the emotional realms. And now you're feeling the energy in your body of that idea, and you're like, either it's positive or it's negative, and you're like, oh, I like that idea, because I can feel that emotion in my body, it makes me feel good. I want to create that. I want that idea to I want to transmute that energy from the mental to the emotional, now to the physical realm. And that's where I take a piece of paper and I start drawing the blueprint of my idea. And then I'm going to go and look for the materials, whether I want to make a chair, for example, and I'm going to have to cut a few trees to have some wood. And I'm going to decide how I'm going to make that chair by drawing the blueprint. And now all of a sudden I'm going to make that chair. And it's how ideas go from the spiritual to the physical realm, and there is all these steps in between. And it all starts also with breathing life into an idea. The quality of your breath when you got that thought will determine the emotional response that you're going to have, and that's going to determine what actions you're going to take. I think it's all fascinating how you can actually create with breath, and how you can also let go, the practice of let go with breath. But that's the thing that we need to be careful about. When you let go of negative energy, they say, "Oh, just let it go, just breathe it out." But the thing is, at first I used to do that, and then I realized wait a second, if I breathe out that negative energy, then I'm putting it out on the open for somebody else to pick up on it now. So would that not make more sense to become the alchemist and to actually transmute that energy within myself so that I don't even, you need to be careful what you let go, even if it's something that you can't see. It's a negative energy. I see it as a cloud. Negative energy is like a cloud of energy when you breathe it out, or whether it's coming out through your pores or it's coming out through your nose or your mouth. When you're breathing it out, you're living it out there, and the next person that comes in that space you know might absorb that energy without knowing. So, I mean, that's getting deep, but that type of breath work, like there's so many different things that you can do, and there is all the holotropic breath work, the fire breath, and all, Wim Hof.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is brilliant stuff as well, man.
Control breathing. Yeah, and so, I think that as an alchemist, you have a furnace inside you, and if you can build
Yes.
a furnace, you can burn and transform. Everything is just potential energy, and if
Mm,
you are wanting to release something, just open a portal and release it into the ground, and it's something through your intention that you can do that. But breath work is very important. I think, though, that every individual, when they take on a breath work practice, um, my advice to you is that you also understand that when you take on a breath practice, what is it actually going to do inside you, and prepare yourself for the emotional releases that are going to happen. It's not all kumbaya and everything is going to be
mm,
this peaceful state. When you start to breathe properly, when you start to align the body and you start to align the energy systems and meridians, the energy will start to flow. And when the energy flows, it'll hit a block, and that it will blow through that block. And when it blows through that block, it will release memories. It will release
mm,
emotions. It'll release all the things that you didn't want to face, and those will be just as bad in that moment as they were when you stuffed them and didn't want to think about them. So it's
mm,
very important that you have a journaling system, or you have a guide in this practice, a master that can lead you through it, that's been through it, that can help you hold your hand step by step. And
mm,
then the next thing with breath work to be very careful is that if you do breath work that gets all up in your head before you've grounded yourself down into the earth, then you
mm,
can get up in your head and you open things that you're not ready to open. And in those situations, you can induce psychosis, you can induce depression, you can induce all these different things. So it's very important that when you go out and you take on a practice, that you go and learn from somebody that is not just a weekend certified instructor. It's
yeah,
somebody who's been indoctrinated through some lineage and understands how to ground you, what the steps are, what the processes are, so that you could safely do it, that they explain to you, this is what's going to happen, these are the things you're going to feel, and then they provide you with the tools to deal with the emotions. Because when those things get released, they're being released to be processed. But if we don't have tools to process them,
yeah,
one of two things is going to happen. It's going to induce psychosis or depression, or lead you down that route, or you're going to stuff it all back. And when you stuff it all back, it's going to take twice the amount of
it's
time,
even
effort
worse. Yeah,
for you to deal with it the next time. So I think there's a dark side of it that we need to understand, and it's not just as simple as picking up a book and doing something. Or I really suggest that if people are interested in the self-discovery process, that they go find somebody that can lead them through it. And how do you find somebody that then the next question I get is, how do you find somebody? How do you know that they're qualified because you're not in this realm? Well, that's where you have to study that individual, be around them, and not just go and believe everything they say. You need to
mm,
watch how they live their lives. And the number one question is, are they happy? Are they actually really happy? If they're
yeah,
angry, if they're chasing power,
yeah,
where's their person? Are they happy?
mm,
Is there a shine in their eyes? You see what I'm saying? Can they show you the path they went through, where they were to where they are now? Can they
yeah,
honestly share it with you? And the next thing is, do they have a method that has been passed down to them? Once again, we're living in a world right now that is completely disassociated from their relationship with their center. So
mm,
overwhelm, exhaustion, distraction
mm,
are dysfunctions, and these dysfunctions have become the norm in the society we live in, that's always stressed and anxious and fearful. So guess what? Now there's a whole uh, there's a whole new profession of breathwork practitioners.
Mm.
And so the trap is, or the limitation, or the thing to be aware of is, once again, has this person done the work, or did they just learn a course and they're teaching you a course?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
right? And that's a very important thing to ask, because when you open some of these doors, you can't go back.
Mm.
When you see some of these things, you can't unsee them.
Yeah.
And so it's a really important thing to understand. And also, when you take on this practice, are you in that space in your life to do it?
Yeah.
Because this practice might make you say, I don't want to do my job anymore. I don't want to
Mm.
be in this relationship anymore. I don't want to be around my family anymore. Are you ready for those things?
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? And so there's so much that goes into it that we need to like take a look at all of it, so that it can really lead us to a path of transformation, because that's what it's truly designed. But
Mm.
you can't go through a path of transformation if the person guiding you hasn't been trained to protect you through it.
Yeah. Yeah. The intention has to be there, like the unconditional love behind it, where you know that you're with a person that's got your best interests, your best, yeah, interest at mind.
And they can protect you.
Yeah.
The key thing in the breath work is you need somebody to protect you from yourself and with the shit you don't know.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so it's such an important thing, because otherwise there's many stories of that I know, and there's a lot of people that come as patients
Mm.
that that are in trouble.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's quite similar, like plant medicine, for example. It's like who you do it with, because like we're talking about some potentially life-changing experience, stuff that's going to change you forever. And I have been, I don't know if you're familiar with all. I mean, I'm sure you are a bit, but I did. What was that? I did some bufo. Couple of years ago with a shaman that, after I thought about it, the experience wasn't that great because of the energy around that person. That was a couple, but she was trying to play some music with crystals. She had a whole collection of crystal bowls, to make music with, and he was a bit in a macho energy. I didn't really like that. He was like, I'm the one running the show here. Do you know what I mean? I felt like that. So she started playing a bit of music and he gave her a look. And I said to her, do you know what? Continue playing. I really like it. Do you know what I mean? Because it was a bit of the way that he was around her. So the whole experience of me, having that bufo, which is DMT, which is 5-MeO DMT from a frog, was completely different. And that's what I thought I was dying. Seriously, that was a pretty bad experience. Uh, and then some other time where I actually done DMT with actually a partner, a woman that I've been with for like 5 years, and she was holding the space for me, and the experience was completely different because she was there to hold the space for me. She was there to help me. Well, I felt that guy was doing that a bit more for the money and for the ego. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm a shaman sort of thing. Like, so yeah, it was choose wisely who you do that sort of thing with, for sure. What
Yeah,
about
and
visualization, brother? You use visualization as
yes, yeah, absolutely. And a
training
lot
for personal development.
Yeah, yeah, and one other thing on that last topic, I think that, when we take a look at these awakening experiences, or people entering flow states, they fall into three categories, right? There's number one is a flow or die situation, like I experienced in the street fight,
Mm,
or or in the wave, and so there's those situations. Then there's isolation, so we remove ourselves from the world and isolate ourselves. And then number three is psychedelics.
mm,
And one of the things that my question to people is always is that, you know, anything outside of yourself, it can lead you to certain experiences and understandings. But the true thing is, how can we get to it on our own? Because that's sustainable. Because if I'm chasing a wave, I need a bigger wave. If
mhm,
chasing isolation, I need more isolation.
Yeah.
If I'm chasing some external stimulant, then I'll need more of it eventually. And so those are not sustainable in the long run. And
The long run, yeah.
how does one actually, because see, flow is always happening.
Mm,
It's not something we need to get into. It's
mm,
always happening. It's kind of like our body, our mind, our breath, and our spirit is in a hose, like
mhm,
a hose, garden hose, and the water's running, but the hose has kinks. So it appears that the water is not flowing through. But there's different kinks in the hose, there's different knots. Those knots can be spiritual knots, they can be emotional, they can be mental, they can be
mhm,
physical knots. But when I undo the knots, the water, the energy flows on its own. The
mm,
flow is always happening. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that we need to get into the flow state. Well,
mm.
the flow state's always happening and happening for us.
It's placing your awareness within it to be aware of it. Yeah,
It's what are the blocks that are in the way?
yeah.
And so if I can go through unknotting these blocks, then I can access what's already natural and happening right now by myself. And
Mhm,
that starts to change your experience, with regards to your question on visualization. There's something called imagination and there's something called imaginal.
mhm,
And imagination is if I say, hey, I want you, Julian, to imagine a sailboat with blue sails.
okay.
Okay. Imaginal is if I ask you to see something that creates a physiological and mental and emotional response within your body. So if I say to you, for example, I say,
Let
uh,
me
Julian, imagine visualize or see a time in your life when you were extremely happy. What was
mhm,
happening? And the moment you think of it, you start to feel a change in your body. So now
mhm,
we're using our imagination and our visualization to create an actual physiological change inside the body.
yeah,
That is when we can really use those practices to help us in our growth. Like, for example, if I say, I tell people all the time, like, all right, if you want to feel what the number one principle that's acting on all of us that we can never change is the force of gravity all the time. How we sit, walk, stand from our conception, the force of gravity is acting on us. So how often do nothing in our world that we can do is disassociated from our relationship with the force of gravity. But
mhm,
how aware are we of the force of gravity? And relaxation flows downwards because tension rises. So when you look at tension, tension rises. Your breath rises, speeds up. Your
mhm,
thoughts speed up. Your respiration speeds up. Your heart rate speeds up. So everything it rises. But relaxation falls with gravity. So to understand relaxation, we have to understand gravity and how it's always pulling us down because tension is always taking us up. So simple aspect can be okay, go to an elevator, stand in an elevator. When the elevator starts going up, you feel, you
yeah,
feel the
yeah.
change. So now you can feel that. And then when you go and stand, you can use your imagination to remember and recall that feeling and do it without the elevator.
I do that, bro. It's like when I close my eyes and I try to relax, I actually visualize myself falling in this black void of nothingness, and I it's like I really feel it. It's like close my eyes and I can actually induce that just by thinking about it, just that falling
That's it.
sensation. Yeah.
And it's profound. Ride an elevator for an hour and you get it ingrained, and then you can go have that visualization of the experience and use it.
Mm,
Similarly, if I remember, man, the first time I went up against Coach Derek Sierra, a former boxer, pro boxer, and he almost fought Antonio Tarver. He was one fight away from him. And the first time we boxed, man, he hit me so hard with a body shot. I'd never been hit so hard in my life. My ribs were in my throat for the next 3 weeks. And then as I prepared for him 6 months later, every day that I would uh, hit the heavy bag, I could use and imagine and create an avatar of him because it had already happened.
mhm,
And I could go in and come back out. And I remembered that with his youth so much bigger than me, who's smooth, he moves like Ali, Naga grappling champion, super strong. Imagine like all those things. And he's also a federal agent in the army. So he's a
mm,
complete dude. And he's smooth, right? On top of it, he's smooth, powerful and smooth. And I could now create this image And I remembered moving with him and getting tired because you just walk you down, he'd stalk you down. He's one of those people who has the elbows that go to the hips. So when he goes like this, everything is covered. He
Mm,
grins at you, he smiles, the smiling tiger stalking you down. But you could then take that experience every time and invoke that heart rate instead of just aimlessly hitting a heavy bag. You see what I'm saying? And
yeah,
so there's so many things we can do with our imagination and visualization to enhance our experience of what is actually happening. I mean, as children, we used it all the time. I pick up a stick and I imagine I'm Zorro. I'm
yeah,
having the greatest time of my life.
yeah.
So why as adults do we not do that? And if we don't practice imagination, we cannot be involved in creation because
Mm.
imagination is the fuel that
It's a
allows us
glimpse
to
of the
see things
future.
that are not
Yeah.
possible. So
I always say imagination is a glimpse of the future. You know, anything that's happening in here can be transmuted to the physical realm. We just need to find out how. But yeah, like visualization, like was a big aspect of my being when I was younger. I would put some Prodigy. You know the Prodigy?
mhm.
I would put some Prodigy on full blast and I would lie on my bed, close my eyes, and I would just visualize myself doing all my techniques, all my skill set, all my punching, and I'd opponents coming from all sides, and I would even be twitching. Like, I was in it so much that I'd be twitching as I was doing it.
Yeah. And
Uh,
we can create our own virtual reality games. We don't need to like put
yeah,
things on here.
I think we are in a virtual reality. We are in the universe built. We live in the. You know, it said like God lives in our mind, and we live in the mind of God, because everything is like a fractal, you know, the fractal nature of the universe. So
Well,
everything is a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of never ends and never starts.
I think that, when you take a look at two of the most profound statements I know is be still and know that I am God and the kingdom of heaven is actually within.
Hmm.
Really believe that and go inside, we see that there's not a separation between us and the divine. And
Yeah.
the only reason we have that separation is because of these masks, because of our traumas and our
The
beliefs
ego. Yeah.
that keep us separate. And so now we believe in something outside of ourselves instead of know what is in us is in everything. And that's where our freedom really is.
True. What's your what's your thoughts on the way to program the human mind? I know that's something that really helped me in my life. It's NLP, you know, neuro linguistic programming and self hypnosis, and you know, every morning wake up and uh, yeah, you see, I got boards everywhere. I got my affirmations everywhere. I work with sigils, and I got some more over there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like every morning when I wake up, I know I just have to, even before I open my eyes, I'm like, right, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm, you know, I'm this, I'm that, all positive affirmations. And then I open my eyes and I got them on my board here, I got them on my wall here. I love myself. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to have a constructive and productive day. I'm going to get a lot done today. Today is my day. Like very simple stuff like this, but this has helped me so much. And I started to do that since my spiritual awakening in 2012, and a lot of stuff that's on my wall now has been manifesting now. Just for the simple fact that it's been written on my wall, and even if I don't look at it consciously every day, my subconscious mind picks it up because that's what the subconscious mind does. And so, is that something that you use as well for yourself, like positive affirmation and NLP and self hypnosis?
I think, yeah, all of these things are great tools. And I think where you're coming from is where you're going, and what
Yeah.
you think about comes about. And what I'll oftentimes with manifestation, what there's a language of the universe to understand. The universe doesn't understand what you say; it understands what you put importance on. So, for
Mm,
example, if you say, "I don't want
mm.
A, B, C, and D to happen in my life,"
It will come because that's what you're aligning with.
your emphasis is on "I don't want."
Mhm,
So what the universe sees is what's important to you is what you don't want.
mhm,
But instead, if I say, "I wonder how easy it would be,
mhm,
X, Y, and Z," now
mhm.
what happens is the universe says, "Okay, let's make this easy." So
Yeah.
when people are tasked with an obstacle, and I get asked about prayer all the time, people sometimes ask or pray and it doesn't work when they're asking for the obstacle to be removed. If
Mm,
you do believe in a higher power, then the obstacle was given to you for your growth. So
mm,
the prayer can't be about removing the obstacle. It has
mm,
to be about giving you the strength and ability to see the things you don't see so you can grow through the obstacle. And that changes your whole relationship with what's happening. It
mm,
empowers you, and prayer can't come from fear. It can't come
yeah,
from not having this happen to me. It has to be like, all right, give me the strength and ability to heal. Let me
yeah,
see things that I do not see. What are the actions I need to do to grow? Let guide me in that instead of
yeah,
take away obstacle, take away this suffering, take away this issue in my relationships or my health or my
mm,
finances, whatever it may be. And I think that's where it breaks down. And if we can always come back, one of the last things I want to share is that if we can always come down to understand the most important thing when we remove our masks is
mm,
that it's not about me.
mm,
It never was. And if you're in a funk and you're stuck and it's a difficult time in your life, then just start serving. It'll help you get out of wherever you are. It's service is such a powerful thing. And even if you look at the word observer, server is in
yeah,
the word
yeah,
observer.
yeah.
You see,
Selflessness, yeah.
the
That's what
self.
Eckhart Tolle used to say it like that. The guy that wrote The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, who says you need to be the silent observer of your thoughts and emotions. So it's like kind of
Yeah,
take recoil. You got your thoughts and you're so close to your thought that you believe this is what you are, but by just kind of taking some recoil from it, and you look around and you're like, whoa, this is my thought, but there is emptiness around it. So if there is emptiness between me and my thought, then I'm not my thought. And if I'm aware that I'm thinking, then who am I? Do you know what I mean? Who is aware that I'm thinking? And who is aware that there is somebody that's aware that I'm thinking? And who is aware that there is somebody that's aware of somebody that's aware that I'm thinking? And you could kind of take as much recall as you want. It's yeah, I mean, I can put it like that in words, but to do it when it truly matters, that's difficult.
it is, and it takes constant practice. That's why you have to have these practices of center and come back home all the time. And they have these principles. You have to become a slave to the principles
Mm,
because then the principles govern your behavior and what you do. Because, we're all faced with obstacles, but if we understand that we are given this obstacle, whatever test we're being tested with, we can pass it. And the reason we're given this test that we can pass, as difficult as it may be, is because somebody will be brought to us
yeah.
that we can help that could not pass that test. So if we understand that what's really happening is happening for us and
Mm,
not to us,
not
so that
to
we all
us.
be of
Right.
service.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole thing. We're here on Earth for the short little blimp on this rock going around the sun,
Mm,
and to discover what is our mission. And if we don't discover our mission, which is always attached to some kind of divine purpose,
yeah.
something will always be missing, no matter what you attain, no matter what you acquire, no matter what spiritual practices we do, whatever it is in the physical, intellectual, spiritual realm, something will always be missing.
Mm,
And we keep drilling back into the center, keep peeling the layers of the onion, and
yeah.
get closer and closer to the source. It's a beautiful world, man.
It is when you look at the core of everything. And it's like when you were saying, when you're having a prayer, and you're like, oh, please help me with this, take away my suffering, or fix this for me, or fix that for me. I see it in a way because uh, I've had some crazy experience, man. I'm gonna tell you, I've spoke with angels. I mean, okay, I was maybe high on on psychedelics, but I've done some automatic writing and stuff that's really really profound. And when you speak to yourself, but you tapped into something in yourself that knows you better than you know yourself, and that's infinitely loving. And it's the best way that I can explain it is like, it's an angelic experience. And so we it's said that we all have like guardian angels or spirit guides. You can call it spirit guides. And when I pray, when I'm asking for help, before I used to ask for help in a way that, please fix that for me. But it never happened. And I realized that the way to pray is show me the way, guide me, please give me the strength to go through that challenge. Please give me the strength to understand how I can go through that challenge, because I don't want you guys to do it for me. I want to do it, but I need help. I need you to help me do it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's different. It's completely different. I know not
100%.
everyone believes in angels and demons, but yeah, I do. I've had some experience with both. Brother, I've just got a last couple of questions to ask you. Questions that I do ask everyone. If you could go in the past and do something differently, what would it be?
Nothing.
Nothing. I knew you were gonna say that, because otherwise you wouldn't be who you are today, innit? Every moment led to this person that you are today. Okay.
100%.
If you had an advice to give to younger generations, what would it be?
Stop seeking approval. Stop trying to control things
Yeah,
and discover the cause of your fears.
that's good. That's good, man. Well, listen, brother, that was great.
Thank you, man. It was great for
That
me
was
too. Real
amazing.
pleasure and honor to get a chance to speak with you.
Same here, man. I like deep conversations, man. We need more of stuff like that, for the world and for people. So, is there anything that you want to plug in this podcast? Are you having any seminars coming? Any courses that you sell? Have you got a website? How can people find you? You can actually do that now if you want.
Sure, sure. I have my big annual event coming up June 22nd to the 25th in El Campo, Texas. It's called JKD Foundations, the Style of No Style, where we're going to teach the fight and flow method of how to train, how to teach, and things of that nature. So that's coming up. I have products with Black Belt Magazine called Jikundo for Black Belts, with the Budo Brothers, JKD and Kali, or Martial Arts for Everyone, courses that are online people can go and check out. But the biggest thing that I'm working on is a program called Master Your Center, how to
Mm,
build incredible amounts of energy and get more done in less time by learning to relax under pressure and flow in chaos. And it's a program and a book and things that are all about to be released. You can go to masteryourcenter.com, and it's a series of talks and workshops and a process that individuals who are martial artists or who are not martial artists can learn to find their center, move from their center, keep their center under pressure, and most importantly, recover their center when they get knocked off. Because in this world we live in, filled with overwhelm, exhaustion, distraction, we need a method to cultivate peace, presence, and playfulness. And
mm,
there's nothing that can be disassociated from our center. No victory, no defeat, no good times, no bad times. So the root of all conscious choices comes to how close we are to that center without those masks and free we are. And that's kind of the mission I'm on. And if people want more information, they can go to masteryourcenter.com or sifusing.com for martial arts stuff. And I'm on Instagram at Sifu Singh. And you guys want to train, come out and support Julian's podcast. It's absolutely wonderful. And I wish you, sir, the best of luck in everything you do. I watch all the great work you're doing and the stuff you're putting up. So
cheers, man.
blessing,
I'm
much
doing my
success.
best, man. I still got a lot of things to learn, bro. I mean, I'm only young, man. I'm only like 35, man. So I still
We
got
all
a lot of things to learn, man.
right on.
So for anyone that wants to watch that podcast again, it's broadcasted on Facebook on my page, on my Facebook page, but it's also broadcasted on my YouTube channel called Adrenaline Combatives. It will be in the live section if people want to see it again, or if you want to post it, or it's all good. So, Mr. Harinder, I shall see you very soon, hopefully. Maybe someday when I go to the States, it'll be with great pleasure to meet you someday. And I wish you a good day.
You too, sir. Thank you so much. Many blessings.
Take care, brother.